There's a couple in our church in New Orleans that most people would consider the odd couple. This is why. She is a medical doctor. He is a construction worker. She works in the hospital with patients all day. He works in building houses and buildings. And someone asked her, how could she submit to a man who made substantially less money than she did? And like a grown woman, get what she said. She said, I have never judged my husband by the size of his purse or his pocket, but rather by the size of his purpose in my life, by the size of his passion for me. She says, I've never judged him by what he had in his pocket, but rather what he had in his heart. She said, yeah, that's true. I make probably 6 times the money my husband makes. My husband has never been able to match my money, but guess what? He has always been able to match my grind. She says, I have never found myself trying harder than him. I have never found myself working harder than him. I have never found myself loving harder than him. And that's why I'm able to submit and call this man who works in construction my husband. She said to me, she said, Pastor, my husband is not a man in my house. He is the man of my house because he's earned that position. I want to tell you, a lot of folk are missing great people because you're so busy looking at money, you forget about meaning. You're so busy looking at pocket and purse that you forget about purpose. Listen, you will always be able to find somebody that can afford you. But you know what the hard thing is? Finding somebody that has the capacity to value you. Because a person can afford you and still be disrespectful. A person can afford you and still talk down to you. A person can afford you and still misuse you. But when they value you, you've found a gem. Listen, don't you miss a dollar because you're chasing dimes. Dimes are always shiny, and we love the shine. Well, he has this or she has that. Dollars are not as pretty, but guess what? They hold more value. Choose folk that have value, not just folk who have shine.
Love the great message there by the pastor. He seems to have a good church. But the biggest issue you have right now, you look at the situation. He's talking from more of a biblical, spiritual perspective. I don't disagree with what he's saying, but there's a part of us as human beings, as animals, when we talk about hypergamy and female nature. It is natural and normal for a woman to want better, to look up to a man. And how is that really evaluated in a capitalistic, materialistic type world where those women were raised in? Even though many of them are in the church, it becomes more complicated, more difficult. The first problem is the misunderstanding of a woman's true dating market value versus their social status or their value as a human being. Because a woman can women have this belief that making money and having a certain economic or financial status equates to the level of man that they should be with. And the truth of the matter, men don't see it that way. So a woman can have a high social status, high education, high level of whatever, and still have a low dating market value. And the issue that happens with most relationships is not that the woman's making more money, it's what she does with that money. She uses that money to think that she's better than the man. She disrespects him. She demeans him. She mistreats him. That's why, because we're dealing with a more gynocentric type culture and environment, in a true patriarchy, most men, fathers, including family members, help women pick a man. And character is a huge part of that. Economic success is a part of that as well. But again, we're pushing back against nature. When you add spirituality, you add the church in there, there's so many different factors in it. But some of these women that I see that think they have high expectations of men. They try to define men only by money, when anybody could be a trash dude with money, or he could be a trash dude broke. But inevitably, what ends up happening is that they may be a person that maybe, let's say she's a doctor, but she's 300 pounds. She has the dating market value of probably a homeless guy. Even the construction worker, she would not even qualify for. Some of these construction guys make a lot of money, and some of them are in business and whatever else. What if that guy works out? He's in shape. He looks good. He takes care of his body. He's not going to be attracted to some educated woman. That's not easy on the eyes. Women think that this status equates to who's supposed to be attracted to them, and the money. Men don't look at women that way, and they don't seem to get that your social status, your income, and all this other stuff means nothing to men. And one of the reasons why is because you're not going to spend any of that money on us like that. It takes one hell of a virtuous unicorn woman to really respect a man who makes less money than her, or treat that man in any type of decent way. Because one is the family, friends, everybody's going to look down on her and everybody else. And even in her own mind, her own nature is going to be working against her. It would take a unique unicorn of a woman. But at the end of the day, even with the women out here that I see, the average or below average women who think that the average man is ugly or disgusting because they're bloated with they're hooked on social media delusion, which is what many of them are, you really can't tell them anything, because there's some that they make a certain amount of money and they have achieved a certain degree or whatever else they want. Somebody, they don't know that they're not even the equals of an average man, because they don't look at their physical appearance. And what men look at, if a woman doesn't look a certain way, she's dead on arrival. Men are not interested. So we see a lot of women out here today rejecting the unattainable man, the man that would not even want to date you, even if he's making $50,000 a year and you're making $500,000. He doesn't want to date you because you don't look like nothing he wants. And this is why we talk about, when people use this provider thing, forget about provider. Talk about a leader. A leader. Because the provider, now you're just talking about a walking wallet and an ATM. A leader is something totally different. That man's capacity to lead and protect, that's not just based upon just being somebody who pays for shit all the time. His mind, his spirit, his leadership, his guidance, those things are valuable and important too, just as important as money is. And they're valuable. That's why when men choose men for women, we will take a guy who makes less money. Especially if you're a father, if we see a dude has poor character, but he just has money, there's no way we're going to allow him to get in a relationship with our daughters. We'll take a guy making half the amount of money, who has good character, who's a solid guy, solid leader, who's going to take good care of her. But anyhow, with that being said, yes, hypergamy is real. Women's nature is what it is. And especially in the church now, we have a lot of these Christian feminist women, or the rebranding women, or the women who come back and after the streets, they burnt out on the streets, and now they're deeply religious. They're trying to religious some guy into a marriage, when the reality, nothing has changed about them except that they just burnt out. And the only thing they have left is to use religion to try and get a sucker to sign a contract and a deal. But anyhow, let me know what you think about what the pastor had to say, and leave your comments down below. Make sure you like the video. We'll talk soon. Bye.